everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Rackley. I am here at 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝐴 and we just came off a trip from the land of finesse fishing up on the Great Lakes using some key elements, and I want to give some tips on what I learned, because I'll be the first to admit I'm not a huge finesse fisherman, but what I learned was crucial, and I'm going to take that with me on all my other fishing experiences. So let's get into it. This is a heavy metal tungsten mushroom jig head. It's a tiny little thing, you know, from a guy that throws a lot of big jigs and big profile shaky heads, Texas rigs, things like that. When I first started using these and fishing these and just looked at them, I was like, what am I gonna do with that? But it is absolutely essential, especially when you're fishing for smallmouth bass who have a very small mouth. And the important thing is when you're using light tackle. So when the finesse fishing is to the max, I'm talking, you know, 6-pound fluorocarbon line, light rods, you know, very finesse stuff. You gotta have that light wire hook. And the greatest thing about this is tungsten, and we will get into why that makes such a huge difference. Ultra clear water, rocky lakes. That's where Ned rigs really seem to shine, and throwing the mushroom heads like this, it's a huge pattern. But when you have tungsten, it makes such a big difference. That was one of the big lessons I learned from this past Erie trip, because I got my butt handed to me by another guy that knows a lot about it and has a lot of experience. And using lead, you can get away with it, you can catch fish, but when the fish are finicky, like we experienced, and many times when you're finesse fishing, the fish are finicky. Tungsten makes a huge difference, especially around rocks, because the little tiny noise, you're looking at tons of, you know, there's tons of gobies up there, there's a lot of bait. How can you stand out? It's making that noise. So when that tungsten hits a hard surface, it makes a little clicking sound. And that's very important. A lot of other anglers use this with drop shots as well. It really helps trigger bites. So the heavy metal mushroom head has that incorporated. What it also does, it helps you keep your bait lower profile with a heavier weight. So if you've got to get down there, you know, 20, 30 feet, instead of having to use a bulkier head that's a bigger profile, you get the advantage of the smaller diameter, lower profile, and you still get that great sound. Here's the main thing. When you match this up with this mushroom head, whatever bait you're throwing, you want it to kind of be flush with that plastic. So I'm going to show you how to rig these little guys. The tungsten mushroom heads, they come in a lot of different sizes, both in weights and in hook sizes as well. There's a 1 and a 2/0, and then you can match 3 different weights depending on each hook size. So if you're throwing a really small profile bait, say you're throwing the 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹 rattling Ned, you're probably going to go with that 1/0 size. But if you're going with a little bit bigger profile bait like the 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹, that's when I would go with a 2. And I just want to kind of match. So they give you those options. So here's the important part. Now all these come nicely clam packed like that, and you get 4 to a package. But the way you want to rig this is you want to make sure it's pushed all the way up to the base of the bait. So this right here, tailor-made for Ned rigging. This is the 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹, and I'm using the 2/0 size mushroom head. You want to go in a little bit farther than you would think, just so you're going to have enough room for it to push all the way up to the top or the base of that head. So you want to come perfectly straight out of one side, and that is so the bait doesn't roll over. It's going to fall perfectly straight, and you have enough plastic to push up over that hook keeper right there. That hook keeper is super important. So push all the way past it, scrunch it up, and then it's going to rebound back and be beautiful. So it sits on there nice and flush. So you see that head, the circumference of it fits that 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹 really good. So it's a very natural profile, and you've got an exposed hook right here. So if you're fishing really open water, you're using that light line, this makes it so easy to get a really good hook set. Very, very sharp hook. There's another way you can rig these if you want to get a little crazy, And Jeremy Starks over at Bass Mafia showed me how to do this. And he's fished Great Lakes and finesse fish with Ned rig style baits for a long time. But say you have a little bit more cover, you've got some grass out there and your exposed hook is getting kind of hung up. What you do is you go in just a little bit. This is like 𝗙𝗹𝗹𝗶𝗹, and you come out probably about 1/8 of an inch into the bait. Pull that hook keeper all the way through and then twist that head around, and then you kind of go through the side of the bait like this. And that's more like your traditional shaky head style. The bait will still stand up, and you get good hook penetration. I would do it with the 2/0 size. The 1/0 is a little small to go all the way through the plastic. But with that 2/0 size, you got enough gap in the hook where you can basically Texas rig it right there. I would call that the Texas Rattler. And that way you can get it through some heavier cover. You need to throw you some light stuff when you're throwing these tungsten mushroom heads. So 6-pound line, that's what we were using up there on Erie. Sometimes even 4-pound. I try to stay away from the 4-pound because I just have that Texas size hook set. I tend to break a lot of fish off. I'm more comfortable with fishing 8, but the rod is also important. So you want to make sure to pair your light line like this 6-pound Googan 𝗙𝗶𝗹𝗶, now available at shopcarls.com. And then also get you a medium light or medium rod, something that's got a fast tip. But the key is you want to have some flex in there, because when you set the hook on that little tiny hook, that penetrates really good with light line and light tackle. So you don't have to worry about, like on a Texas rig or jig where you really have to rear through that plastic. Don't have to do that with this. So downsize your tackle. It's part of the whole finesse fishing situation with fishing these mushroom heads, and you're gonna have a lot more success. One last tip before we go, the technique. So there's plenty of ways you could fish this, but a lot of times the most effective is to go slow, almost do very little with the bait. Drag it on the bottom. When you come across a hard spot, whether it's some shells or some rocks or anything that's hard that fish are probably gonna be located on, that's where you give it the little shakes. So having a sensitive rod, that really helps, where you can feel those little differences and not waste your time just shaking it the whole way back. But it's basically just a drag the bottom. I know that the baits don't look like much, but the fish eat them like Cheetos. They just do. So if you want to get yourself into the Ned rig fishing game, get yourself some of the heavy metal mushroom tungstens. They are available at shopcarls.com, link down below. Also the line, the rattling neds, 𝗙𝗍𝗶𝗹 bugs, it's all down there, everything you've seen. So fishing is tough, or you've just got clear water and the fish are finicky, you need to try this technique. So thank you for tuning in today for this tip. Make sure to stay tuned for this and many more right here on the Mystery Tackle Box channel, and we'll see you on the next one.